I think when I first recognised that I have kids who have ASD, and more so with my youngest, because he didn't talk, I thought that was massive. I remember sort of feeling the weight of that, and I was so worried about his future. Does this mean that he's never going to have, you know, all the things that you expect and take for granted? Is he going to get married? Is he going to have kids? Is he going to be fulfilled and happy? You know, what happens if I die? Who's going to look after him? You know, all these sort of worries are really, really heavy. But I think what it did was actually strengthen my faith, because again, you're forced to recognise Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, you're forced to have tawakkul. You know, alhamdulillah, we do that with honour, and we try to do that outside of being pushed there, you know. But it did make me recognise that, okay, maybe there's certain things in life he won't achieve if he doesn't learn to pray, like all these sort of things that you expect your kids to do. If he doesn't have the ability and the skills to do the everyday acts of worship or fulfill traditional sort of life expectations, then it just means that you're living with and you're taking care of a person of Jannah, a person who is guaranteed Jannah. And I'm going to try and get emotional. But how much of an honour is that you're sharing a house with someone who's guaranteed Jannah? My name is Aisha Murray. I'm also known as the Scottish Revert teacher. I'm on YouTube and Instagram for dawah purposes. I didn't really prepare for the introduction, if I'm honest. But yeah, just to be a part of good and remembrance online, inshallah. I have two sons who have been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, which is a developmental disability caused by differences in the brain. People with ASD often have issues communicating, sensory issues. They have a lot of sometimes social issues. How I recognised my sons having it. Well, my youngest son got diagnosed first, and I would say that his autism was more obvious. I actually realised when he was really young, before he was at the age where he would be expected to talk, because he wouldn't eat and he would freak out about certain things. But let me give you an example. So usually the process of a child, their development of their eating, is they have their milk and they start to have like sort of soft foods, and that sort of develops up. But my son refused to eat baby food. He didn't like the consistency. Now, I just put it down that he didn't like the food itself. But the more I tried to feed him, the more that he would like spit it out or he would gag. And it didn't really matter what the flavours were, you know. I realised at some point that it wasn't about the flavours. It was about the consistency, to the point where when he got to about, you know, between the ages of 1 and 2, I had to feed him really dry food. It was the only thing that he would eat. So I would feed him things like couscous and salmon or rice and chicken. I would have to break it down, obviously, but these were the only foods that he would eat. Anything else you tried to give him, if you tried to give him pasta, if you tried to give him anything with a sauce, you know, he wouldn't eat it. Even butter on toast, the fact that the butter wets the toast, he wouldn't eat it. But if you were to give him a bit of dry toast, he would eat it. So and with that, for me as a parent, came a lot of guilt. As he started to get older and he was expected to talk, he just never spoke. Like, he remembered a lot of vocabulary, but he wouldn't communicate like a kid would at that age. Like, he wouldn't try to form sentences. He would just repeat maybe vocabulary. Sometimes it would be really advanced vocabulary. So it was just having a huge development on one side and then nothing in the next. I started to suspect that maybe something else was going on because of that. I did suspect, and I did say it to the people around me at the time, but I did get a lot of backlash. So there was a lot of me expressing my concerns and me being told that, you know, I'm being an extreme mother. Maybe it's my race that's making me come up with this sort of stuff, you know, or it's the fact that I'm Western. Lack of parent abilities. Even though this was my 4th child, I was an absolute expert, to a degree, obviously, at this point, you know, because there was quite a big age gap. No, so I did suspect it very early on, but I just never knew what to do or how to go about it. Not until he got older and he was expected to start school and he still couldn't talk. He had a lot of sensory issues as well, like he couldn't put socks on because of the lining in the socks would irritate him. And yeah, and you couldn't, with kids who don't have such learning disabilities, you can just sort of say, I know it's uncomfortable, but you have to wear it at school. You can't do that with an autistic child. They will have a full scale sort of reaction to it. So you have to accommodate. You can try and fight it, but it doesn't last long. It's just easier to accommodate it and try and find ways around it. So I did go into school before he was about to start and say to the school, express to the school, I think he has autism, but he hasn't been diagnosed. He can't talk, he can't do this, he has issues with this, he has issues with that. And the school were fantastic and just took it in their stride, and through that we got the right services involved, and eventually he got diagnosed. Alhamdulillah. You know, it was extremely overwhelming, because I knew, you know, you just know. And I'm not like this, my parenting style is not one that babies her kids, you know. I'm quite strict. I have high expectations because I know that my kids are amazing and capable. So I try to push them and encourage them. But with my younger two, it's just different, you know, it was just different. I had to, I was forced to sort of recognise that not all kids are the same and you can't expect the same from all kids. And just, I guess hearing someone else say, you know, you're right, when I was getting total opposition elsewhere, it was just a relief, I guess. And I wanted help for them. I wanted to be able to do the kids justice, and I just felt that I wasn't equipped to do it. So I guess getting that diagnosis was that first step to being more helpful for them. So alhamdulillah, I think I was fortunate in the sense where I was a teacher, right? And when you are a teacher, you are trained to accommodate differences, and I don't just mean, you know, the Equality Act, you know, different things that people stand for, but you're also trained to accommodate people's learning differences, people's learning strengths and weaknesses. And you know, I was running courses, so I would also be putting that sort of expectation out there on the teachers who were teaching on my course, you know. So I already was familiar with looking at a situation and adapting it and customizing it to the individuals that I was responsible for. So I think I took that and just tried to increase my knowledge on how people with ASD, different ways that they learn, because there's not a one-size-fits-all situation when it comes to ASD. Everyone is different, their traits are different, and our challenges are different. So you do have to both learn the common traits and different ways to sort of help them in one sense, but you also really need to study your child as an individual as well, and yeah, try and accommodate them as an individual, see what works for them. If it doesn't work, change it, adapt it, figure it out, but throw it in the bin sometimes and, you know, try something new. So it is a lot of paying attention, a lot of time that, you know, we already give our kids time, but it's more so, you know, you really need to put your thinking cap on, you really need to sort of observe and be present so that you can try and do your best by them. Yeah, both of my sons' autistic traits and needs are different. There's some commonalities to an extent, but they're very different. So my youngest, he was mute up until, you know, a few years ago. So yeah, that was huge, because you're having to learn what a person wants and needs without words or without very obvious instructions. Does that make sense? Like, even if a person is not able to talk, they're able to point, they're able to, you know, they're able to communicate in a more obvious way. But with my youngest son, it wasn't like that. You really had to figure things out based on what you've noticed over time, behavioural traits over time. So like that can be a bit challenging and it's a bit exhausting initially, but it does get better. It does become second nature almost, which is amazing. Appreciation for Allah's creation, that how we adapt and how we learn to deal with our circumstances, no matter what they are, no matter how difficult they are or complicated they are. You know, it really did give me a new sense of gratitude and appreciation when I started to recognise things without them actually being very obviously said. It does eventually become somewhat second nature. And with my other son, like, so my youngest maybe, he can look you in the eye and he can always just sit down and learn. But if you were to give him like a paper craft to sit and cut out, like let's say a Minecraft character, he can listen to a full mathematics lesson whilst he's cutting this out, and you can ask him questions and he's listening and he'll be able to answer. But he's not looking at the teacher and he's not doing what kids might be doing. He's not writing it down, let's say. Goes against the traditional rules, and I think that's another thing that is a big learning curve, is that sometimes you have to throw the traditional stuff out the window and adapt. So it goes against the traditional rules, but it works. He learns, which is amazing, right? Because like, who can do one thing with their hands and listen and take it in? Yeah, which is fantastic. But yeah, it appears that when he is distracted with his hands, or like when he's given something else to do, that he can pick things up better. If you were to sit him down and say, you know, look at the board, listen to your teacher in the traditional sense, like look at your teacher and pay attention, he wouldn't be able to do that. He would need something to distract him to be able to engage in that way. Which again sounds weird, and if we were to do that with every child it wouldn't work. But I guess that's what makes him unique, that this is how he learns, and that's really what it's all about. It's about finding the way that people with autistic spectrum disorder learn, how they learn as individuals, and then accommodating that and building on it. So I've been a parent for a long time, alhamdulillah. So with that comes a lot of learning. So alhamdulillah, we're okay, we're doing okay. The older two are fantastic, you know, and I think having family members with ASD has also given them a skill set for life that they'll be able to take on to their own families, you know, when they have them and when they get married and when they have their own children. I think the skills that they have learned through having siblings with ASD has really sort of geared them up for that, which is amazing, right? A lot of people can sort of feel sorry for siblings who have to sort of deal with some of the pressures that can come with having siblings with ASD. But I don't. I see it as an opportunity. It's a strength, and my older kids reflect that a lot, you know. Alhamdulillah, I'm really blessed to have them. They're good eggs. Again, both sons are different. So I've got one who works best when he has a really firm schedule, but then I've got one that needs constant reminding, a constant push, because he just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work like that with him. Biggest thing is you just have to take everything day by day. You know, even me as a parent, sometimes I have bad days. So I also have to take into consideration when I'm not feeling my best self, that it's all right if things go AWOL. You just have to do your best in that moment. Before, I was always trying to stick to the traditional stuff, like, okay, school starts at 9, so I need to get up at this time and, you know, get everything done. But sometimes it didn't matter how early I got up. If someone was having a bad morning, then that was it. You know, so I had to sort of throw the getting to school on time out the window sometimes and say, you know, sometimes that's going to happen and it's fine. It's not the biggest deal. What's really important is that I get them out and they get to school and they have a better rest of the day, you know. But so there is a lot of, again, adapting and dealing with situations in the way that go against the status quo. But yeah, you just have to have a lot of patience for yourself. You have to be kind to yourself. Sounds really cringe and cliche, but it's so true, because I think as women, if we are not acing parenthood, we can be really hard on ourselves and we can feel really guilty about it. But acing or succeeding doesn't always look the same. Sometimes success is just getting a pair of socks on first time without any complaints, or getting my son out the door with a different jacket. You know, like whenever my son grows or his shoes get busted and I need to get my new pair of shoes, it's a whole ordeal. They don't deal with new things very well sometimes. So sometimes it's just, sorry. So yes and no. Like, my youngest is a lot with sensory issues, so anything to do with colours and this stuff he really has a challenge with. Even weather conditions, if it's raining, like, it's almost like it hurts him. Which is ridiculous, right? Because it rains all the time here in Scotland. But you know, it's why it's so essential that I have a car, because I always find it really difficult to get him out sometimes. So my youngest has a lot of sensory issues. My other one, he's more, if plans change, sort of overthink things and that sort of thing. So yeah, they are different but the same. That's what I mean. Like, it's all to do with the process of change, but they just have needs in different areas, if that makes sense. Probably the violence is one of them. I think everybody assumes that people who have ASD are going to be violent, and although it's not there, it's not always everything. There are people, of course, who are in that situation. I mentioned sensory issues, so there's some people that might have really sensitive hearing, and if certain noises are made, their impulse after that is to be violent. So like that sort of stuff does exist, but every person is different. Again, it needs a lot of time, a lot of patience, a lot of observation, you know, really paying attention. So yeah, which is hard in this sort of world, because it's a rushed world. We're constantly sort of moving and have things to do and things to achieve, but ASD is one of those things that, whether you like it or not, you're slowed down. You can't just use traditional methods to get by. You can't just say, I don't care how you feel about this situation, you're going to eat it, or you're going to wear it, or you can't just force things. You have to adapt, you have to move with it. And that was very much a hard lesson for me to learn, because you know what it's like when you have more than one kid or two kids. You have to be sort of, to a degree, structured. You have to sort of move in a certain way. So I was forced to do otherwise, whether I liked it or not, and messed with me a bit, but now I see it as a strength, and it brings comfort and calmness, actually, because I'm not raising certain standards too high for myself, even though they're probably higher than most people's. I don't know. Allah knows best. Exactly. Yeah. I think, just based on my own experience, obviously, I can't speak for everyone, but I think when I first recognised that I have kids who have ASD, and more so with my youngest, because he didn't talk, I thought that was massive. I remember sort of feeling the weight of that, and I was so worried about his future. Does this mean that he's never going to have, you know, all the things that you expect and take for granted? Is he going to get married? Is he going to have kids? Is he going to be fulfilled and happy? You know, what happens if I die? Who's going to look after him? You know, all these sort of worries are really, really heavy. But I think what it did was actually strengthen my faith, because again, you're forced to recognise Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, you're forced to have tawakkul. You know, alhamdulillah, we do that with honour, and we try to do that outside of being pushed there, you know. But it did make me recognise that, okay, maybe there's certain things in life he won't achieve, but if he doesn't achieve certain things, if he doesn't learn to pray, like all these sort of things that you expect your kids to do, if he doesn't have the ability and the skills to do the everyday act of worship or fulfill traditional sort of life expectations, then it just means that you're living with and you're taking care of a person of Jannah, a person who is guaranteed Jannah. And I'm going to try and get emotional. But how much of an honour is that you're sharing a house with someone who's guaranteed Jannah? Now, I'm not saying that my son falls within that category, but at that time, that's the sort of things that I had to tell myself, right? I had to sort of comfort myself with that, which is a huge honour. A huge honour. You know, if your priority is the dunya, then it's a weight, it's a difficulty. But if your priority is the akhirah, then, you know, you're good. You're good. Alhamdulillah. So I have to be honest, I think there's a lot that still needs to be done. Not even just solely within the Muslim community, but outside it as well. We could use a lot more awareness, and I think there are great people out there who have family members who have ASD, who are going into the mosques and they're trying to accommodate. The kids' mosque that they attend is amazing. The first year when we came back to Scotland, because we moved back in 2020, before that we stayed in London. First year we came, we couldn't attend. One, because there was still the whole COVID situation going on. But also my son wasn't ready. He was still having outbursts, let's say, whenever he was triggered by whether it be a sensory issue or being in a crowd, you know, the different things. He would sort of lash out. So, as well as his speech not being there. And what really worried me as a person is that he wasn't able to communicate what was going on with him. So although I might be able to see through certain behavioural traits or certain things that he does or how he reacts to it, other people wouldn't be able to do that. And they might just see it as a behavioural thing, the fact that he's, you know, not disciplined. And you can ask my older kids, you know, no one gets away with nothing in this house. So it's not that. So I was very conscious and protective of that. I did look into it, but I think upon reflection of looking at his needs at that time and looking at how he was handling certain things, I didn't think it would be productive. So I thought that I would leave it another year and see how things went. The next year he had made so many developments. He was able to communicate in a way where he was understood. So we started, and he's doing well. He's doing well, alhamdulillah. My other child, he started straight away. He's doing great. Yeah, they just need more time than the others, though. Like one of my sons is repeating certain things that he did last year just to try and consolidate it and solidify it. So that's what they are doing. They are accommodating, they are taking into consideration, you know, their challenges and where they're at. And yeah, I'm grateful. Not every masjid will be doing that, but you know, that's where maybe we need to get involved. That's where maybe we need to sort of reach out and see if there's an area that we can fulfill or help with. But yeah, I don't know if I answered that great.